Let me say yeah. Let me say yeah.
Well, we've tracked down the keys to the rink to get back in here to the cheap seats. Yeah, we've been locked out for about a year. Just joking. We're back here, the cheap seats. We figured we owed it to you guys that listen that we should put out an episode for you guys. I know it's been a while. We do apologize about that. Life gets busy. It's summertime and hockey is kind of in its downtime anyways right now, but just this is gonna kind of be an update slash just middle of the summer, how you guys doing episode. I am joined tonight by both my co-hosts. We got Nick here. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing okay, Phil. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Like I just said, it's middle of summer here, and we got a storm coming in, so hopefully our rural internet just hangs on tight here for half an hour so we can put on an episode. I also have Jimmy Ward with us tonight. Jimmy, how is it?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, like you said, right in the middle of summer. We're kind of in the dog days of the off season right now. I think our last episode was about a month ago, wasn't it? Ish, just
Yeah,
after
I
the Stanley
think
Cup final. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Florida Panthers just beat the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup. Last time we kind of hooked up and did an episode. Speaking of being busy, really crazy thing. So we live in Edmonton, Alberta, and Jasper's kind of our kind of go-to place as people that live in Edmonton. It's just a 3 hour drive away, one of the most beautiful places you'll ever go in the world. And unfortunately, um, and it's really sad to see Jasper's hit with a wildfire this summer and destroyed a good chunk of the town. Really crazy part about it is our very own Jimmy Ward was in Jasper that day. So I kind of thought maybe you guys want to hear the story of his adventures in Jasper that day. So we'll just start there. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, so I usually vacation Jasper at least once a year in the summertime with my family. So it was our annual trip. So we went down there the day of the evacuation. We arrived at about 2 p.m. We got into town. We had a little bit of lunch over at Patricia Street Deli, which is an amazing place. And then we went off to one of the lakes, went for a swim. We checked into our hotel, did a little bit of more swimming. Then we went out and had some dinner at Jasper Pizza. And it was actually kind of interesting because while we were at Jasper Pizza, we saw the helicopter go by, which was carrying water. Um, I thought maybe it was from a previous fire they had because there was fires up by Mayette, which had been apparently had been under control. So, anyways, fast forward, go to the grocery store a bit. We go back to the cabin, and yeah, we're just out swimming in the lake, and then I noticed there was like ashes falling in the lake, and kind of seemed like the weather was changing a bit. So I'm like, whatever. We got out. We're heading back to our cabin just to kind of get changed and settle for the night. And yeah, the staff had come by and said, "Hey, listen, there's a fire. I think it was 9 kilometers away from the transfer station northeast. We're on alert right now. There could be a possible evacuation. It's like we're not evacuating now, but we're just saying like, be prepared." So I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty wild. Like, seems like it happened fast. And so they had told us that two of the highways were shut down, one going south, one going east, which pretty much would have been, our two highways we would have chose first, which only left one open, which was going west to BC. So we kind of acted quick. We decided we weren't going to wait for the official evacuation order. We started to get out about 8:45. Right away there was um there were lineups to the gas pumps like crazy, and so we end up driving west towards Mount Robson. I didn't have service, so I couldn't keep in contact with my sister and my mom, who also came with us, but they drove separately. So I get to Mount Robson. I was able to finally access some sort of internet connection up at the guest services, along with there was probably 30 other people up there doing the same. Finally got a hold of my sister. She had gone straight to Valemont, which I think was another 40 minutes from Mount Robson. And she was said, I'm working on trying to get a room. No luck so far. Finally, you know, while my sister's trying to ask them where else we could find a room, there was these firefighters that came in and just said, "Hey, we got rooms booked. Like, we'll give them up if you want them." And so we're able to get one of the rooms, and another family got another room from them. So super fortunate. So we're able to get to Valemont. We come up with a plan on how we're going to get back to Edmonton. It was a long detour, and so we're able to get some sleep that night, and then yeah, basically we woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning the next morning and decided we were going to take the longest detour back imaginable. So I think it was something like we drove 950 kilometers to Calgary that day, and we got to Calgary at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then we stayed overnight in Calgary and then drove the rest of the way home, 3 hours home. But we made some stops along the way and whatnot, and yeah, so it was yeah, it was just a wild experience, like especially having an autistic child with you and trying to navigate those waters, having to stop every so often so he can get out and move and all that stuff. So it was we were probably a lot more fortunate than probably those who live there, who were forced out, not sure where to go, not sure how their place was. So I would say, yeah, it was kind of a weird vacation, that's for sure. So yeah, it's sort of my story.
Yeah, it's totally wild. And you look at some of the images coming out of Jasper, and places that have been there forever are you guys saw them on their last day, because part of that town is gone now, and it's really sad, especially for those who have invested their whole lives into these restaurants, hotels. I know there's a gas station that's gone. But yeah, just really sad to see. But I just thought it would be kind of a crazy story for our fans to hear that, Jimmy was actually there that day when the town got evacuated, and probably one of the last people to see Jasper as it was. Um, I was also booked to go to Jasper last week and obviously couldn't go. And I saw today we were going to stay at Whistler's campsite, and I actually saw today like the campsite's gone, burned that like
Yeah,
burned down.
yeah, it was pretty wild. Like they shut down the national park. We ended up going over to Hinton for a like a big birthday celebration for my wife's uncle. He's turning 70, and when we were going up there on the Friday, or it was a Saturday, the highways were just empty. Like nobody was going in that direction. It was kind of eerie just to drive that Yellowhead Highway and see basically, you know, you'd pass a car felt like every 50 to 80 kilometers. So yeah, it's just yeah, it's crazy. It's hard to believe that's been a place I've been visiting forever. I've never seen anything like it, and hopefully, I don't know what the future holds, but hopefully, rebuilding for those who lost their homes, and I hope that everyone can get back to some form of stability soon.
Yeah, and speaking of stability, this podcast, yeah, like Jimmy and I, we started this thing, and when we started it at the end of last season, we said let's just use the end of this season as kind of a pilot to see how we feel about it. And we were very fortunate to have found Nick to join our podcast too. Um, and I don't know, speaking
I
for
don't know about
myself,
that. I don't know if that's
yeah,
fortunate.
We are fortunate. We're definitely fortunate.
yeah. So it just speaking for myself, like I really enjoyed um doing this podcast to end the season off, and um I just wanted to let fans know that we are gonna be committed to um putting out episodes for you guys in the next hockey season, and whether that's once a week, whether that's once every 2 weeks, um we're not going anywhere. And um I know I've had people ask me what's going on, like, oh, you guys had momentum, and but you know what, life happens. All three of us have families, we have kids, we have other obligations that we need to do. And I'm not saying that this podcast isn't important, because it's actually really important to me. I know it's important to Nick, and I know it's important to Jimmy. Um, and we really enjoy doing it, and we really enjoy putting it out for you guys. So, um, it is an NHL podcast, and I know there's been a lot of stuff that we've missed over the last month here since last being on, but you know what? That's okay, because it's news that's out there, and you guys are always welcome and always free to reach out to us on any of our platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on Instagram. You can reach out, you can ask us any questions you want, and we'll answer them. So, um, I know the draft has been over for about a month, but yeah, I was gonna ask these guys a question, but before I want to get to that question, I need to ask Nick. I think on this podcast couple months ago, we talked about Mitchkov and him getting drafted last year, and you're like, yeah, when I see him in Philly, I'll believe it that he's coming. Well, Nick, we've all seen the images. I'm just gonna turn it over to you now.
Yeah, apparently he's there. No, you know what I said, at the time when we first discussed it, there was all the rumblings that he might be coming over, and it's always been a little bit of a mystery what goes on between, with the Russian players and how they get out of their contracts and whether they're actually going to come over. And it was obviously really exciting as a Flyers fan to see him holding up that number 39 jersey at his introductory press conference. And he seems like a good kid. I think he's going to get a lot of support from the players around him. And I think he said, I think it was him that said, he's not coming over here to be the savior of the Flyers, which is good, because they need more than just one guy to save that team at this point, I think. But it's exciting because going into the draft last year, going into the season last year, he was kind of neck and neck with Bedard in terms of, talent and stuff like that. And he obviously fell to the Flyers at 7 because nobody was quite sure what was going to happen with his contract. And some teams obviously didn't want to wait, 3 years. And, whether Philly got lucky or whatever, it's going to be fun to see him play this year. And they had a good season last year. Hopefully he can help their power play, because their power play was dreadful last season. But yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm really excited, and you know what? It's not just great for the Flyers fans, but it's actually great for the NHL. You want all the best players in the world in that league, because that's where they all play. And if you can get another good young kid out of Russia who we know who's projected to be a really really high end NHL player, I think that's great for the league.
Yeah, so he was I think that's gonna be huge for Philly that he's here so soon. Like you said, they were looking at a 3-year plan for him. Is that correct?
Yeah, because his contract wasn't supposed to be up till 3 years after he got drafted. So the Flyers, I mean, they were smart about it, and they basically said, okay, we got to make sure that the team is on the rise in 3 years, because that's when he's coming over. And I think at the time, they still had Cutter Gauthier, so I think for them they probably had some pretty good dreams about Gauthier and Mitchkov playing together, and obviously that didn't work out with them having to trade Gauthier this year. But I think they were prepared to wait the 3 years and be patient, which in their situation would make sense anyway. They're not. I mean, yeah, they were really close to making the playoffs last year, but they're not a contender. I would argue that they're probably not even an average NHL hockey team at this point. They're climbing. They got a lot of good young players. So it's they were willing to wait, and obviously their patience, which actually lasted a year, paid off because the guy came over. So
Yeah, it's that's gonna be huge for Philly. Like I said, man, I'm just like looking at the screen. Looks like I'm in witness protection too here.
It's okay. I'll be able to well, I won't be able to fix that, but I'll probably just put this episode might be stock images of ourselves, which is fine.
No doubt.
It's totally fine. It actually would work out quite well. So
This is how we roll, boys. This is how we
yeah,
roll. So,
yeah.
my question is, and just because I want to throw a little bit of hockey in this update, podcast episode, whatever you want to call it, I was just gonna ask you. So, Nick, you're a Flyers fan. Jimmy, you're a Rangers fan, and myself, I'm a Flames fan. Um, and then since we're in Edmonton, we'll do the Oilers quickly too. Um, Jimmy, who's your favorite pick that the Rangers took this year? Or who are you most excited about?
Um, well, to be honest, I guess it would just have to be EJ Emery, who they took 30th. Um, interesting. The analytic models don't like him a ton, mostly because those are predicated on point production. So EJ Emery is not a big offensive defenseman, but if you look at his overall game speed, his defensive ability, uh, his ability to take pucks away, using his stick and reach, as well as play physical. He could end up being a very, very, very good shutdown defenseman in the NHL. He's probably going to take some time, though. You're probably looking at 2 to 3 years before he arrives on the scene, but that's one that's very intriguing and probably one that I'll follow closely, obviously, much like all the first round picks, right? So, not very flashy, but I'm excited for what he brings, and hopefully in a few years he can grow along with some of the young players that the Rangers have.
And he was a bit of a surprise, right? Pick it in the first round.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like an overly big surprise. I think once you got past about 20, um, I think it was kind of like teams could end up going in all sorts of different directions. EJ Emery wasn't exactly the guy that I kind of wanted initially, but when they drafted him, I was also okay with it. So I'm actually excited to see after doing a little more digging as well.
Nick, same question, but for the Flyers.
For me, it's probably a little bit of a cop-out, but I'm pretty excited about Jet Luchenko. The last podcast we did before the draft, I did say that I was hopeful that the Flyers would draft a good center. I mentioned Berkeley Catton and Consta Helenius, and Catton went well before the Flyers picked, and Helenius went right after. I'm happy with Luchenko. From what I understand, he's a really, really good skater. He's just a really hard worker. He's got some offensive upside. So they're very, very thin down the middle. And I think Luchenko is certainly going to fill a hole. So he's definitely the guy that I'm most excited about. Yeah.
Yeah,
What about you, Phil?
I'll
You guys got a few.
well,
Yeah, you have a few to pick from.
I did because I said, Conroy's got to hit a home run in this draft. And I really believe he did. Like obviously you've got like Parekh, we got him at 9. I think he's going to be a stud defenseman. Apparently he's like super super smart too. Like he was like the only player at the draft that could like solve the Rubik's cube, and like he's just going to do that on the ice or something, but whatever. I was really looking at number 28, pick 28 for them to pick Basha, and they passed on him, and I was just so like, I wish they would have taken him there. Not a knock on Gridin, but Come second round, they actually did get Basha in the second round too. I just love that kid because he's from Calgary, local kid. You know, probably wants to play in Calgary. And like you'd watch the Tigers play and you'd be like, man, who is this kid wearing number 34 just like buzzing around? And then like to find out he wears 34 because he's like a huge Kiprusoff fan. Like loved Mika Kiprusoff. That's why he wears 34 and he's like an out player. So um yeah, that's probably like who I'm most excited to see. Um just because like I like that type of game, like the bang and crash, run around. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But like I said, I honestly am pretty high on all of Calgary's picks. I think they did a um as best as they could, and we're gonna find out and see um
I
how
was
it
talking to
goes.
somebody who was at the summer showcase for the World Juniors this past week, and they said Zane Perek was unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
and he was at Calgary's like little rookie camp they did too this year. Like he was flying out there.
yeah,
And he like looks like confident and looks like he's he looks like he belongs there. So pretty excited. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely exciting times in Calgary.
Well,
Even
not
though,
quite yet.
well, I mean, exciting that you have almost you feel like,
And
there's something to look forward to, right?
well, yeah, and shovels went in the ground last week for their new arena too.
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Well,
That's
yeah,
exciting too,
also,
right? So
yep.
although, I don't know what about you guys, but it's like something about those old barns, man. Like like I said, like where we all grew up in Edmonton, and it's like something about old Rexall, Skyreach Center, Rexall Place, like there was something special about it, right?
Oh, it was
Yeah, it
just
was,
you felt like you're on top of the ice. Like it was that was a loud building when it got going.
and the beer. You can't forget the
Yeah.
beer. Like they never clean those pipes, so it was like drinking vodka. It was like 40% alcohol sometimes.
And it would like it's
It
like
was ridiculous.
saturated in the concrete in the bowels of Rexall Place. So
Yeah, that
speaking of Rexall Place, the Edmonton Oilers, I just
Oh,
want a quick hit from you guys. Any players that the Oilers pick that you guys think could be a player?
did they even have did they didn't have a first round pick, did they?
They traded for a first round pick. They
Right.
picked like
Yeah,
31st,
32. The Flyers
31st.
yeah.
had that. The Flyers had that pick from the Giroux trade with Florida.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody there that really excites me. They don't have a very good prospect pool. I know they just traded for Savoy, and we'll see how that kind of works out, but I think the Oilers are in that window of, the next couple of years. At least this next coming year is probably, I think, their best shot in the next couple before they have to start shelling out a bit more money to some key players. So uh, yeah, I don't think anybody that's coming down the pipes really. There's not much excitement if I'm an
Yeah,
Oilers fan. I'm excited
for
about the team now, but I'm not particularly excited about what they have coming.
for me, I actually I watched a lot of the Memorial Cup this year, which was usually where I watched most of my Ontario Hockey League teams, and obviously Sam O'Reilly played on London, and I really liked his game there. Like he's fast, he works hard, he's physical. He scored some really nice goals. There was one goal that he scored against Moose Jaw in the round robin. I can't remember which defenseman he walked, but he walked him hard and then just cut to the net and scored a really nice goal far side from not a great angle. And he's the kind of guy that I think will be just from watching him at the Memorial Cup this year. I think he'll end up being a fan favorite. So
How long do you think before he sees an Oiler lineup?
I think he's a few years away. I think most of those guys he's got to be a few. I mean, their closest prospect to playing in NHL now that they traded Borgo is going to be Savoy, and I even think he might play some games this year, but I mean, if they're going to be a contender, he's not playing in their top six, and I've watched him play since he was 12 years old, and he's a guy he's got to play in the top 6 year lineup, and I just don't see a spot for him there. So I think he'll have to spend some time in Bakersfield, and he'll probably light that league up. It's too bad he won't be playing with his brother, but he'll be just fine in Bakersfield, and like I said, he'll probably get some games. But if the Oilers are healthy, I don't foresee him playing a whole heck of a lot here this year.
No, and probably good for his development to go to Bakersfield, just because I think he also had suffered a few injuries as well, and it's hard to kind of get into a rhythm and get your feet under you.
Yeah,
exactly. From that aspect. So probably Bakersfield for the year, which is nothing wrong with that. The Oilers don't need another scoring winger or center. I think they're doing just fine in that department. So yeah.
So do you guys think Leon gets signed this summer?
100%.
Yeah, I think it gets done before training camp.
I think his agent said they wanted to get it done before the end of August. So I mean, they got it's the 4th, so they got 27 days to get it done. I think it'll be done. I would be shocked if it went past the middle of August. I think that now that they have their general manager, I think that's the only piece of business really left to do before training camp. So I think he'll be done, and they'll know it's going to be high 13s, low 14s probably for an AAV for 8. He said he wants 8 years, so somewhere in there. And I mean, you're getting a top line player for,
and he's earned it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's going to get paid value now.
Well, that's like I saw somebody writing about how he should take a home team discount. I'm like, he already did.
He did, yeah.
So yeah. I don't know if you can get him to take for however long that's gonna. I can't remember how long his first contract was for, but was it for 7?
I think it was 7. I think his first one was 7.
I can't imagine you're getting him for 15 years of a team friendly discount. He's got to earn his money at some point. I'm sure the team knows that, and obviously his agent knows that too, because his agent's probably taking a hit on his commission, thinking, "Holy cow, it should be a heck of a lot higher than it is."
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, so, that's and the pressure from the PA has got to be pretty high on these two that are coming up, like McDavid's next year, right? And so I think they're encouraging those players, hey, let's please don't take the discount. It affects our other.
Yeah,
our whole there's a lot that probably goes in. My guess is they probably have the number and years agreed upon, and I think it's probably now just how this contracts can be structured in terms of bonuses and salary. And
well, it sounded like it's going to be salary or signing bonus heavy,
which is probably smart.
Yeah,
lockout and buyout protected, especially since you're 29.
Yeah.
So he's not getting younger. He's still in his prime, but when you start to get 32, 33 years old, you're definitely going to want signing bonus to kind of protect you out of that buyout. You get most of that buyout money back. So
yeah,
not to say though he'll get bought out, but you got to protect yourself as a player, and so
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, nice for him coming up.
Yeah,
I guess.
And Stan Bowman, the new GM for the Oilers, he has his work cut out for him. So. Yeah, and speaking of training camp, that's probably when we're going to be back, and like I said, we'll be back kind of more.
So I thought you were going to segue into NFL training camps. I got excited. It's like, oh, we're going to talk about the NFL.
That's a different podcast that I am actually not a part of. So,
yeah, I don't think I'd be able to help much there either. So, outside of them, the Packers gave Jordan Love a lot of money for a little work.
That's not true. They beat the Cowboys in Dallas in the playoffs. That's huge.
It is huge, but I mean that's a lot of money for 1 year. I believe in Jordan Love too. I do.
He'll be just. The Packers went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan
To
Love,
Jordan
which
Love, I
is
know.
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's my Lundqvist to Shesterkin. So I get to cheer for a team that is really good in one position, and that's about it. So
I gotta
although the
ask you, Jimmy.
Packers do have some young receivers, so be fine. Yeah,
I
you're
gotta
gonna
ask
ask me?
you
Yep,
about
yep,
the Rangers.
yep.
What do you think about the Lindgren deal that's basically walking him to unrestricted free agency?
I think jury sees writing on the wall that this core is probably not good enough to get the job done. And it's going to be really interesting to see because I had basically said at the end of the season that I think they should have reset, kind of a 3-year reset, just looking at some of the players they have, some of the ages they have, and contract structures. And the core is not getting younger. They're going to be a year older next year. They got to the conference finals. I think this is as far as this team can go. I don't think they're good enough to win the Stanley Cup the way they're constructed. So I think Lindgren at least allows them to kind of see this possibly, maybe this is the year where they go one and done and then they just move guys out. Um, yeah, yeah, I think the lot didn't go the way I think Jury had planned. And I think this is kind of plan B on the fly. So not surprised. I think Lindgren isn't a number one left side defenseman for them to play. I know he plays with Fox, but I think Fox is going to need a better partner down the road. I was hoping that Keandre Miller would be in that spot, and that Lindgren is probably better suited for middle pair. He didn't have a very good season either last year, so I think the 1 year is interesting. But I'm okay with it. I'm glad they didn't commit to him the 3-4 years. He's an old 26-year-old, so um, so I didn't want them paying him till he was 30 because he just gets hurt a lot as well. So I think he's okay. I think he's solid for what he does, but I'm definitely happy they didn't commit long term. And if he walks, then it's fine with me. Or they trade him. So we'll see. See what happens.
Well,
It's gonna be interesting.
one of our fans actually wanted me. They're like, "Hey, how come you haven't recorded?" They wanted to hear Jimmy melt down about Jacob Trouba too. So,
You got my email, Phil?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna melt down about Jacob Drew because I'm more annoyed with management because that's a management problem. Jacob Trouba has a no movement clause up until a certain date, and then there's a 16, I think it was 15 or 16 team modified no trade where he submits a list. Like if you wanted to trade Jacob Trouba, you don't go to him and ask him to waive his no movement. I mean, I understand that there's probably that was predicated on a few different moves that were probably dominant. That was the first domino that probably needed to fall. But Trouba said no. I'm not going. I have this in my contract, and is it disappointing as a fan a little bit because of he ties you, he kind of handcuffs you a bit on what you can do or what you can add or where you can play guys. Yeah, that's frustrating, but I'm not upset with Trouba. That was just so poorly mismanaged by the Rangers that what they could have done is essentially what they did with Goodrow, they placed him on waivers and he just got picked up. What they also could have done is, once his modified no trade kicked in, they could have just agreed on a deal with somebody and just traded him and not said anything. And so if that's what your plan was, then that's probably what you should have done. You don't go to him and ask him to waive his no move, knowing that he's probably not going to not waive it based on his family situation. So that's on the Rangers, and that's their mess to clean up. So I've been more frustrated with management than I have with actually any of the players. And I don't hate Jacob Trouba. He negotiated that contract. He exercised it. It's his right. So it's kind of how I see it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Jimmy has spoken on Jacob Trouba.
I have.
We'll see where the situation lies in a few weeks here when we join you guys again. Yeah, unless something crazy happens or you never know. Me and the boys, we might get the itch to just put out an episode if some news breaks or if something happens, or like I said, if you guys have any questions or if there's anything you want us to discuss, hit us up on Facebook. on X or Instagram. Watch us on YouTube. You'll see. Apparently, I'm gonna have a disguise tonight too, because I ended up outside on my deck and there's a big storm and it's dark and
I'm getting a disguise too, just to be cool with you guys.
yeah, exactly. It's just gonna be a
Uh,
one of those episodes. So yeah.
totally fine with it.
Any final words, boys?
No, I just looking forward to just enjoying the rest of summer, and then get once training camps open up, we can get back in the thick of things, give our kind of previews, see what the rosters look like, and yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, for me, I'm enjoying the Olympics.
Yeah.
For any of our listeners that enjoy basketball, the men's basketball has been outstanding. Canada's really, really good. The Americans are really good. There's a lot of good players. It's been really good. Actually, I watched the tennis match today, the final between Djokovic and Alcaraz. That was unbelievable. I don't know if anybody's watched that or even watches tennis, but the Olympics are awesome. NFL is starting. You can call it the dog days of summer, Jimmy, but it's a good time to be alive right now.
So Nick's starting
Okay.
an NFL podcast and an Olympic podcast, just so
There
you
you
guys
go.
know.
There
And
you
I'll
go.
be the only host. I'll be the only person on there.
Jim Rome
And the only
style.
listener.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that's hilarious.
So from the cheap seats, guys, thanks for bearing with us, and then like I said, we're gonna have way more for you guys coming up this season. We've got our eyes on some pretty cool guests too. We just got to get those lined up. We're gonna have some good interviews coming up with some people, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And like I said, and you know, we've always said, we're open to having you guys on our podcast too. So, I know people have reached out to Jimmy and myself, to come on the podcast, and we'll get you on. We will for sure. Because you know, this isn't just for us, this is for you guys too. And we respect everybody's opinions on hockey, and we're just here because we love the game, just like you guys love the game. So, with that, gentlemen, thanks for popping on in the middle of summer, when you're busy, and um, for this little update episode. And yeah, hope you guys have the good rest of the summer and enjoy it, because it's going to be over before you know it, and we're going to be back in the rink. And I know we all have kids in hockey too. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Sounds
So,
good.
Have a good
okay,
summer,
boys,
guys.
take it easy, and we will see you probably around training camp. So take care.